people that there is a growing crisis of national security and humanitarian on the southern border.
Over the years, thousands of Americans have been brutally killed by those who illegally entered our country, and thousands more lives will be lost if we don't act right now.
As for the president's wall/barrier, which is at the heart of the shutdown, he again defended it and argued that Democrats are simply playing politics with national security.
Fox's Garrett Tenney in Washington. The president inviting congressional leaders back to the White House Wednesday to try and find a deal. But in the Democrat response, House Speaker Nancy Pelosi charges the president had the chance to avoid a shutdown.
The fact is, President Trump has chosen to hold hostage critical services for the health, safety, and well-being of the American people and withhold the paychecks of 800,000 innocent workers across the nation.
The shutdown has now reached its 19th day. It's the second longest ever of the U.S. government. A police officer has been killed during a traffic stop in suburban Phoenix.
As he was approaching the vehicle that he had made a traffic stopped on, he was struck by another northbound vehicle. That vehicle then struck the vehicle Officer Townsend had stopped. That's
Captain Jesse Galvez of the Arizona Department of Public Safety, who identifies the officer killed as Clayton Townsend of the Salt River, Arizona Police Department. He leaves a wife and a 10-month-old child. As many as 10 foreign embassies or consulates have been evacuated in Melbourne and Canberra, Australia. Suspicious packages have been discovered at each, police treating them as hazardous materials incidents. This is Fox News.
Introducing Exchanged, Guam's first online and mobile remittance to the Philippines. Exchanged is the easiest and fastest way to send money to your family and friends anywhere in the Philippines. Download the Exchanged app or visit their website, exchanged.me. Sign up, remit, and get a chance to win a trip for two to Manila. Deluxe accommodations at the Belmont Hotel at Resorts World Manila. So sign up and remit now at Exchanged. Promo ends March 2nd, 2019. Conditions apply. Also avail of Exchange dollar to remit promo. Visit exchange.me for details.
Always here to help you. This island is our home. Through the years, we've been a friend to the neighbors we have known. Now we're banking on the future. Services to choose. Bank Pacific, where others put branches, we place roots.
A droning nuisance returning to the skies over London. Flights at Heathrow Airport delayed for a while Tuesday by a drone flying in Heathrow airspace.
We've heard from Commander Stuart Cundy from the Metropolitan Police. He says police officers were amongst those who saw the drone, and a full criminal investigation, he says, has been launched. He says they're carrying out extensive searches around the Heathrow area to identify any people who may be responsible for the operation of the drone.
Sky News reporter Ali Fortescue. Last month, flights at London's Gatwick Airport were delayed for 3 days by drone activity. The office of Florida's Governor Ron DeSantis is denying the governor has suspended Broward County Sheriff Scott Israel, despite reports of his removal over the response to the mass shooting last year at Florida's Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School. Sheriff Israel has reportedly told subordinates he believes he is about to be removed and plans to fight that. A second suspect has been arrested in the apparent random killing of a 7-year-old Houston girl.
Tuesday, the day Jasmine Barnes was laid to rest, Harris County Sheriff Ed Gonzalez said at the funeral a promise was made to her family.
I said then that while we had made great progress, we would stay the course and complete and follow-up investigation.
That led to a capital murder charge against Larry D. Woodruff, arrested last Saturday on other charges, but now believed to be the gunman who killed the little girl. Another man, Eric Black Jr., also faces capital murder in this apparent case of mistaken identity. Prosecutors in a release say they will decide later to seek life or the death penalty against the men. Gernal Scott, Fox News.
The U.S. government shutdown may prevent Justice Department attorneys from going before a Montana federal judge next week to ask him to lift his hold on the Keystone XL oil pipeline construction project. Dow futures running more than 100 points higher. Day after the Dow added 256 points. I'm Jack Callahan. This is Fox News.
Family Finance has been serving the people of Guam since 1959, and they'll continue to be there for you in the years to come. Whether you're looking to get a personal loan for that summer vacation or paying off those long overdue bills, Family Finance has got you covered. Apply for a personal loan from $1,000 up to $3,500 by calling Family Finance in Hagåtña at 475-4545, Upper Tuon 647-5626, or in Dededo 633-4473. Family Finance has been serving the people of Guam since 1959.
Here at APL, our core values give the company its heart and soul. Whether it's connecting your business with our global network through our newly enhanced service or investing our efforts into giving back to the community, APL is committed to serving you. We humbly honor the opportunity to find innovative solutions for you and your business. To learn more about our enhanced service, call 588-4651 or visit www.apl.com/Guam for more details.
Welcome to Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie, the only show on talk radio where common sense is a lot more common. Phone lines are now open at 888-TALK. That's 888-8255. And now, The Point proudly brings you Tall Tales with Senator Bob Klitzkie.
A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. That's how we start the program every day. And as is my usual custom, I will bring you up to date on late-breaking Second Amendment news here on the island. I got an item for you. Senator Joe San Augustine has introduced Bill 14, which extends the limits of the Stand Your Ground bill. I probably will do a little workup on that tomorrow. Those of you who are familiar with the whole Stand Your Ground idea will remember that it modifies the doctrine of self-defense. So here's how the doctrine of self-defense, the standard doctrine, the common law doctrine of self-defense works. You can use force to defend yourself or in defense of others, provided that the force is reasonable and proportional. So if somebody comes along and starts pushing you around, as an example, it would be disproportional to reach in your pocket, pull out a gun, and shoot him. So you could use proportional force to defend yourself against an aggressor. The standard doctrine of self-defense says, though, that before you use any force, you have a duty to retreat, to back off, to run away. One exception to that at common law was inside your own house. You don't have a duty to retreat inside your house. If someone starts pushing you, knocks on your door and tries to push you, you can push them right back. You notice I haven't used the words deadly force here, because the doctrine of self-defense does not necessarily invoke the use of deadly force. Now, if someone comes at you, knocks on your door and has a knife in his hand and he tries to stab you, well, then probably deadly force would be proportional. Now, the Stand Your Ground doctrine expands upon or modifies the doctrine of self-defense and says that, well, let me start first with the so-called castle doctrine. The castle doctrine takes off on the idea that a man's home is his castle. I guess the person that came out with that doctrine never saw my house. It's not really a castle. It's okay, but it's not a castle. So the idea is that inside your castle, you don't have a duty to retreat. Well, the castle doctrine takes that lack of duty to retreat beyond the walls of your house and adds it to where you happen to work or your car. So you don't have a duty to retreat if someone comes into your office, where you work, your plant, your factory, whatever, and starts to aggressively use force against you, you don't have a duty to retreat. Same way with a car. If you're in your car and someone attempts to open the door and force his way into your car, you don't have a duty to jump out the other side door and run away. That's the Castle Doctrine. Now, the Stand Your Ground Doctrine expands that thought even farther and said that you don't have a duty to retreat if you are occupying a place where you have a right to be. So let's say that you're down on the beach and somebody comes along and tries to kick sand in your face, if you remember the old Charles Atlas comic book commercials. Well, if you're on the beach, it's not your house, it's not your car, it's not where you work, but if someone attempts to use force against you, you don't have a duty to retreat before you use proportionate force against him. So that's Joe St. Augustine's Bill 14, which we'll probably talk about in the Second Amendment portion of the program tomorrow. It just so happens that as I was doing my show prep for today, I ran across this article in the column Bearing Arms by Tom Hitton, entitled, Georgia DA Encourages Citizens to Understand. Stand Your Ground. And this is what it says. Stand your ground laws get a lot of attention these days. They have for quite some time now. The thing is, most people don't understand what the law means. They think it empowers people to shoot anyone they think is, quote, scary. Or even the more ridiculous, it lets white people shoot black people. However, Dougherty County, Georgia District Attorney Greg Edwards took the opportunity to explain your Stand Your Ground laws recently. He said that because of recent crimes committed, it is important for people to understand when it's appropriate to act in self-defense and when it's not. The district attorney said this law, called Stand Your Ground, has been around for years, but some people may be confused about when to use deadly force when in a dispute or when a victim of a crime. Stand your ground means you can defend yourself wherever you are, only if deadly force is brought against you, Edwards said. This means if a person comes to you looking to kill or cause bodily harm, you can defend yourself. Georgia enacted its Stand Your Ground law in 2006. Before that, Edwards argues that there was a duty to retreat, though I seem to recall it almost never being enforced. My memories matter because Edwards is the DA of the county I grew up in. Some try to present Stand Your Ground laws as somehow morally wrong. Some have even gone so far as to argue it legalizes murder. There are none of these things. It's about being able to protect yourself and not having to seek a way of escape that may not even exist. I disagree with Edwards' choice of phrasing, though. History has shown that deadly force may not be necessary, just a perception of deadly force. For example, if someone pointing a BB gun at you, it is unlikely to be fatal, even for example, someone pointing a BB gun at you is unlikely to be fatal even if they, not if he, but if they pull the trigger. But if you don't know it's a BB gun, your perception is that they are threatening you with a firearm. Using deadly force in response is understandable in such circumstances. There's an important distinction because we've seen air guns used in violent crime before. At a glance, they look real enough, and it doesn't matter how small the barrel is if it's pointing at you. It seems like the main gun on a battleship. So the key here is whether a reasonable person would believe your life was in danger under the same circumstances. Boy, we just have a lot of trouble with pronouns here, don't we? We want to avoid he and she like the plague. So the key here is whether a reasonable person would believe your life is in danger under the circumstances. So if A points a BB gun at B, the key here is to determine whether B thinks my life is in danger. That's what that sentence says. The key here is whether a reasonable person would believe your life was in danger under the same circumstances. Back to the news story here. In fairness to Edwards, it was a TV interview that condensed the topic down to a soundbite. It's a far more complicated topic that the news media tends to not want to get involved with, and results in a lot of people not understanding the law at all. Edwards' explanation, however, is far closer to an accurate portrayal than most of what you see in the media, and he gets my appreciation for it. So we'll talk about that tomorrow, and I've explained my position on guns and the Second Amendment many, many times. The Supreme Court says everyone has the right to keep a firearm in his house for personal protection. The Ninth Circuit says that you could carry a firearm on the street in anywhere in the Ninth Circuit jurisdiction. I wouldn't want the thought, though, as per this article, that the stand your ground law amounts to a hunting license. So, for example, if you're walking down the street and, or let's say you park your car, and let's say that Larry David approaches you. You park your car and Larry David approaches you and said, hey, you parked your car over the line. You're using 2 parking places instead of 1. And I say, no, I'm not doing that. You know, get out of here, go away. And Larry David comes up and pushes me, right? Am I in fear of my life? No. Can I reach in my pocket and pull out a Colt 45 and drill him right on the spot? Well, I'd be standing my ground, wouldn't I? No, that's not how it works. That's not how it works. We'll spend a little time on that tomorrow, but for you Second Amendment buffs out there, the good news is that Bill 14 was introduced by Joe San Augustine today. So moving on from that to Demi Ekotny. Starting out with the Daily News, but actually starting out with USA Today, because because the Daily News didn't run a home-baked editorial. They got something off the wire from USA Today. So the Daily News starts in a hole already. But there are things for me to comment on here, and this is the title of the story. Another Trump-Kim summit, ? The first one hasn't accomplished much. President Trump ought to set beautiful letters aside and continue sanctions on North Korea. President Trump emerged from his summit, well, a little tongue-tied. Today, yeah, all right. President Trump emerged from his summit last June with North Korea dictator Kim Jong-un and proclaimed on Twitter, quote, there is no longer a nuclear threat. Sleep well tonight. But the nuclear threat remains. Kim said in his New Year's Day address that he hasn't budged on a pre-summit demand, no disarmament until U.S.-led sanctions are removed. Without a lifting of sanctions, Kim warned he would take a new path in nuclear talks. We might sleep better because the warlike rhetoric leaders exchanged in 2017 ceased after their Singapore meeting. And North Korea hasn't launched any more missiles, though Kim asserted his arsenal is complete. Kim's latest strategy has involved sending flowery missives to Trump, the American president who has mused about deserving a Nobel Peace Prize, has an interest in putting the best face on what hasn't been achieved. Trump waves around beautiful letters and said he and Kim, quote, fell in love. One can only imagine how conservatives would react if President Obama had such a thing about a brutal dictator who runs a network of labor camps. And you're right. Theatrics aside, North Korea negotiators have done nothing to put flesh on the vaguely worded bare-bones agreement Trump reached with his Pyongyang counterpart, which called for, quote, complete nuclearization of the Korean Peninsula. There hasn't even been a first step of providing an inventory of North Korean nuclear weapons, facilities, and material. North Korea has used these kinds of tactics for decades, stalling for time and leveraging its nuclear weapons for concessions from America. The response from Trump, another summit, another chance for Kim, who admitted in his annual address an inability to provide electricity to his own people to achieve peer-like status with the President of the United States. The concern is that Trump has a history of making one-sided foreign policy moves without getting anything in return. What would Trump give Kim to preserve the appearance of diplomatic progress? Trump ought to set those beautiful letters aside and continue sanctions until Kim takes concrete steps towards dismantling his nuclear arsenal. Well, I got to weigh in on this, and I've consulted with the foreign policy desk at the Tall Tales think tank, and we have someone back there in the think tank who has actually been to the Democratic People's Republic of Korea. That's me. I was there, and I saw a lot. I read a lot. I even had a long talk with a border guard at the demilitarized zone who could handle himself quite well. And I am prepared to rule, and that is that Kim has played Donald Trump. He hasn't quite made a fool out of Donald Trump, but he's come pretty close to it. And here's the reason why. The people of the Democratic People's Republic of Korea think that the only reason they've been, you may say, brainwashed into this, the only reason that there are any Korean people on earth is because of their three leaders, Kim Il-sung, Kim Jong-il, and Kim Jong-un. And the mythology goes like this, that Kim Il-sung, even as a teenager, fought ferociously against the Japanese. The Japanese had colonized Korea in 1905, and they were very mean colonizers. So the young Kim fought against the Japanese ferociously, and he was so successful that on the 15th of August, 1945, Japan surrendered, primarily due to the efforts of Kim Il-sung. You probably didn't know that, did you, Real Joe Cruz?
No, I didn't.
Yeah, this had nothing to do with the United States, the war in the Pacific, atomic bombs, anything like this. If you ask someone in the DPRK, he will tell you the same thing that I just told you. So rather than split Japan into two countries, the Soviet Union and the United States split Korea into two countries. The United States kept one, and the Soviet Union kept the other one. Soviet Union was okay, though, because they really helped out the Korean people, gave them arms, ammunition, food, et cetera, et cetera. But the aim of the United States is to basically to wipe the Korean people off the face of the earth. Now, in their own hearts, the Korean people know that they are the world's greatest people. And they're very fearful that the United States will accomplish this. And, of course, the United States has maintained a presence in South Korea since the end of World War II. They've recruited the South Korean lackeys to do their bidding to fight against their own brothers in North Korea. And if the Democratic People's Republic of North Korea did not maintain itself on a constant war footing, in other words, ready to go to full-fledged combat tomorrow, the United States and its South Korean lackeys would wipe the Democratic People's Republic off the face of the earth. They're absolutely convinced of that. And because of the perilous situation that the people of the DPRK find themselves in, they willingly undergo any privation that their leadership brings to them. Famine, starvation, complete lack of freedom, etc., etc. It's all a price they happily pay, because they know that if it weren't for those three leaders, the latest one being Kim Jong-un, they would be wiped off the face of the earth. So you take that into consideration, and then take into consideration what happened to Muammar Gaddafi when he got rid of his nuclear weapons. If you are a tyrannical dictator in a small country and you want to find out what it feels like to be hanging from your heels in the village square, just do away with your nuclear weapons and you'll find out pretty quick. So the chances of Kim ever doing anything with his nuclear weapons don't even rise to the level of slim and none. He will hang on to those nuclear weapons. He will maintain his country on a war footing forever. And he has only two objectives. The first one is to continue to remain in power, an objective he shares with all other tyrannical dictators. And second is to maintain the Kim dynasty, so that when his time is up, another Kim will come along, you know, perhaps his son or whatever, will come along to take over the country. So if we think that there's going to be any change in North Korea without what's called a regime change, we're just whistling in the dark. Now, we've committed ourselves not to seek a regime change in North Korea, but what I'm saying is that if we really wanted to change things, the only way that I could see it would be to, and this is counterintuitive, would be to flood the Democratic People's Republic of Korea with wealth, to give the folks in North Korea a chance to see how all the rest of the world lives. Some of this could be done overtly, some of it could be done clandestinely. But if the people in North Korea could see how the rest of the world lives, I think that they would perhaps think seriously about a different regime than the one they have. But right now, the Kim dynasty has bolted the lid on that country down so tightly that it'd be very, very difficult to bring about a regime change. And without a regime change, there will be no change in Korean policy. As your foreign policy expert, the only other solution that I can offer you for the United States would be to arm South Korea and to arm Japan and pull out of Korea and let it be their problem. Pull out of South Korea and let it be the Korean and Japanese problem. Perhaps it would be possible to form the kind of balance of forces that existed during the 70 years of the Cold War. 70, no, not quite that many. 50 years of the Cold War to maintain a relative level of peace in Korea. And one of the other things I forgot to mention, because of the way Kim, seduced Donald Trump into saying all kinds of nice things about him, Trump was able to weaken our alliance with the South Koreans. Now the South Koreans are trying to make a deal with the North Koreans, building railroads at factories and things like that. And, of course, for the South Koreans, there's a great nationalist appeal there. You know, all the Koreans should live under one flag. We kind of went through that in the United States back in the 1860s. Remember that? We didn't cotton, well-chosen word, we didn't cotton to the idea of having two different countries in our space. So I'm going to come back after the break and pick up on the Post editorial.
John Gibson, Digging Up History. The frantic rush to bring life-saving medicine to sick kids led to how we all know you say mush to a dog. That story after this. Let's talk heirloom sheets and towels from Redland Cotton in Alabama. First, the family farm, growing the finest cotton in the world. The spinning, the looming, every step made in America, right down to the cutting and sewing. Sheets designed from a long-lost 1920s weave. The softest, most comfortable, longest-lasting sheets you've ever slept on. The Redland family dedicated to America and linens you'll treasure. Check out redlandcotton.com for America's linen. redlandcotton.com. January 1925 in Alaska, word came that children in frozen Nome, Alaska, needed the serum for diphtheria. The serum was 700 miles away in Anchorage. No way to fly or take a boat. The governor ordered dog sleds to deliver the medicine. Telegraph messages set up 18 different dog teams along the route. They passed the medicine from team to team through blizzards, across frozen bays, over mountains to the sick kids. 127 hours after they started, the lead dog Balto led his team and his driver out of a long Alaska night in Nome with the medicine. And the life-saving mission lives on today. It's a yearly race along the same route we know as the Iditarod. I'm John Gibson, Digging Up History.
Chili's 3 for Me menu just got bigger. We're giving you more choices for the same great price. For just $15, you can get a beverage, salad, and an entree. First, choose from a refreshing Coca-Cola, iced tea, or Heineken on draft. Then enjoy a house salad and select your choice of a mouth-watering entree, like our half-rack ribs, Cajun chicken pasta, old-timer burger, personal chicken fajitas, or the flavorful margarita flatbread. So hurry in today and enjoy our Chili's 3 for Me menu for just $15. Available for a limited time. Chili's, more life happens here.
Welcome back to Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie, Guam's single voice of reason. Call now, 888-TALK. That's 888-8255.
So here we are back again, and I pick it up now with the editorial from the Post. 10 plus points for the Post. It's a home-cooked editorial. It's not something they got from a wire service somewhere, so that gives them 10 plus points. And the Post still can't get over the fact that we got a new governor. I was glad to see that come yesterday, the front page of the newspapers was no longer the entertainment page of the newspaper. I've always anxious to get back to some real news, some hard news, and not the pictures of the latest ceremonies that our government officials are participating in. So it was a history-making gubernatorial inauguration that rose above the usual ceremony associated with heralding a new governor's first day on the job. Well, okay, it is an opinion piece. On Monday, Leanne Guerrero took her oath of office as the 8th person on Guam to become governor in almost 50 years. And she's the first woman to ever become governor of the island. Did you know that, real Joe Cruz?
Yes, sir. I
did, huh?
Yes, sir.
Well, you must follow these things really closely.
Well, I've been listening every day, sir.
I think that's kind of a little-known fact, right, that Leanne Guerrero is a woman?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. I don't know what party she belongs to, right? I don't know what job she's ever, but by gosh, I know she's a woman. And here's a quote. 2 months ago, people from every walk of life heard our call for change. Leanne Guerrero said, now it is our responsibility to deliver on what we've promised. In her inaugural speech, Leon Guerrero listed some of her administration's goals: raise the income of Guam's working families, decrease crime, build safe schools, fix broken streets, restore Guam Memorial Hospital's accreditation, offer transparency on how public funds are being spent, grow the economy. Well, I want to start right out here with offer transparency on how public funds are being spent. Now, we know that the inaugural extravaganza cost $250,000. And I'm looking here at some of the donors. There were diamond, platinum, gold, and silver sponsors. Amongst the diamond sponsors, we've got Bank of Guam, no surprise there. And by the way, I remember the candidate, Leon Guerrero, saying that if she were to win the election, she would resign as president. And I think she said she was going to sell her stock. And I haven't heard any more about that now that she's actually been sworn in. So Bank of Guam, Guam Music, Tan Holdings Corporation, there's a player. Guam Radiologists, talk about transparency. Radiologists, X-rays, transparency. All right, real Joe Cruz. The Dusatani Guam Resort, IP&E, IT&E, Stay Well, Take Care, GTA Teleguam, Cortec, T Galleria by DFS Guam, Autospot, LMS, Guam Regional Medical City, Loti Duty Free, Resorts World Manila, Calvo's Insurance. Those are the diamond sponsors, and I won't go through the rest of the list, but I think you can see what I'm driving at here. Obviously, someone from the Leon Guerrero campaign, if not actively soliciting these contributions, accepted the contributions. So were these contributions the product of disinterested generosity, or perhaps a way to get off to a good start with a new administration? We'll have to watch and keep a sharp eye on this, but I'm going to keep this paper here, and when the Leon Guerrero government enters into contracts, I'm going to compare and contrast. But a good start on transparency on how public funds are spent would be not only to list these names, but tell how much each of these contributors contributed. That would be a good start towards transparency. The editorial goes on to say, the challenges are many and will not be solved anytime soon, she acknowledged. And everyone is asked to help. Democrat, Republican, or Independent, whether you voted for me, made another choice, or didn't vote at all, I now need your help, and Guam needs you even more, because no one, no elected leader, governor, or captain of industry, doesn't say talk show host, can deliver the change we require alone. Now that Leon Guerrero and Lieutenant Governor Joshua Tenorio are seated, it's up to them to deliver details and timelines on how they intend to make good on the promises they made to win the election. They made the pitch that they're the ones who would get the job done, coming right out of the gate and saying the problem-solving rests in all of us offers a dose of reality that may not jibe with the public's perception or expectations of the campaign promises that were made. That's for sure. That wasn't the campaign rhetoric. Okay, all of you folks out there in TV land, there are problems, and we can't solve them by ourselves. We need all of you to help us solve those problems. How well would that have worked with the electorate? Not so hot. So, going on, it was only day one, but the new administration needs to roll out detailed plans fairly quickly so people can get on board. I agree 100%. Now, we'll get in a little bit to what they've done so far. And so far, I only give them one attaboy. And I don't know if you remember how score, well, maybe you don't know, Real Joe Cruz, but in the military, the way you keep score is that one aw shucks wipes out 100 attaboys. And so far, I see only one attaboy, which I'll get to a little bit later on. You need to roll out detailed plans fairly quickly. And they haven't told us so far. They haven't completely told us who's on first or what's on second. Who is the director of land management going to be? Who is the director of public works going to be? Every day that goes by in silence suggests to those of us out here in the peanut gallery that the current incumbents are going to stay on board. That means that, that can you imagine 4 more years of Michael Bora at the Department of Land Management? Public Works is vacant, so that won't happen there. But 4 more years of Michael Bora? I don't know. So that's the Daily News editorial. And I can't say that it's exactly edgy, hard-hitting, et cetera, the things we're looking for, but at least it's homemade. So, and I docked the Daily News 10 points for just running a USA Today editorial. So the coveted Blue Star today, yeah, you guessed it, the Post got it. And they're cheering so loud down there in their office in Tamuning, you can hear them all the way up here in Upper Tuman. Well, it's okay. If you do it right and you get the Blue Star, you should celebrate. It's a good reason to celebrate. Now, on the card today, of course, I've got the law lecture, and then I've got Rory Respicio versus Mary Camacho. I've got Governor Lou Leon Guerrero versus Jim Moylan in low taxes. I've got Michael Bavacqua versus cruelty to animals. And then a couple of things that have been on the card for a while that I haven't gotten to. Tall Tales versus Woke Scolds. The Left versus UOG, which I touched upon the other day. The United States Supreme Court versus the idea of serve and protect is something that one of our Toms got rather exercised about when he called in a few days ago. I've got Standard & Poor's versus Gita, Socialism versus Freedom, which I started on before but didn't really get a chance to finish up on. So, let's see, I think I got a call here. I'm going to take this call before I start out with Rory versus Mary Camacho. And it's from one of our regular callers. Good afternoon, Ken.
I'm doing fine. How are you doing?
I've got a Tall Tales program in front of me, Ken. I got 2 more days this week. Who could ask for more?
Well, I wanted to kind of jump in early on your scheduling because I'm getting ready to go into a meeting because, the Lou versus Moylan aspect, because I find it ironic that during the campaign, Lou consistently said she was not in favor of the increase in business privilege taxes, any increase in taxes premature until they've exhausted all the efforts to collect all the back taxes. And now that Senator Moylan has introduced bills to roll back 2 specific taxes, she's coming out saying, no, it's premature to roll those taxes back.
little Jimmy Moylan should just watch for a while before he does something like that, right, Ken?
Well, he does. He is. He's the way he wrote the bill. He's going to let if this bill were to pass, say in the first quarter, the 5% would remain in effect till October 1, so that there wouldn't be any disruption in the current budget, which I thought was, good thinking. But, I mean, here we have a politician who, on her campaigned against the tax and spoke out repeatedly how unfair it was to increase the burden on the working people when the government hasn't done its due diligence and exhausted all its efforts at collecting taxes. And now that she's in the driver's seat, it's all of a sudden, oh, wait a minute, we need that 5%. We need that fuel tax increase. It's okay for the people of Guam to bear this burden. And I'm just hoping, and maybe I'm putting words into her mouth, I'm just hoping that with the coming calamity we see at the hands of the federal government as they're scrambling to reduce budgets, and as we know, when departments reduce budgets, Guam takes a disproportionate hit. I mean, a 5% reduction on the Health and Human Service budget will probably be a major hit to public health. A 5% on education will be a major hit to education here, considering how much of the different budgets are, have federal funding. So we're already seeing this. We're already seeing the tea leaves. I've been talking about this ever since before the elections, because this is the same thing with the Trump tax cut. We were talking about it for a year, but it caught the Calvo administration and the 34th legislature totally by surprise. They didn't have a clue. Well, now we have the administration talking about federal cuts to budgets and programs. So I think that, we're looking at an economic tsunami coming our way, but I was hoping that the incoming governor was going to show some leadership on her campaign promises, but instead she's appointing deputy directors. So we're looking at, I think it's somewhere between 57 and 61 deputy directors that are going to be in panel. I was hoping she was going to stay at her house and not spend the $4 or $5 or $6 million a year it takes to run government house. But it looks like she's going to take advantage of public housing. And
also she revived an agency that Governor Calvo did away with in 2011, the Agana Redevelopment Authority. And Lester Carlson said, "Oh yeah, we can find the money to fund that position and the staff." So
and the office space, and the utilities, and the benefits.
So to me, condensing this all down is that I hope Jim Moylan learned his lesson, because the day after he introduced his bill, I was extremely critical of his bill, and I used the analogy of the carnival bell-ringing apparatus that requires you to hit a lever with a big mallet. I'm sure you're familiar with that, right?
Yeah.
So I gave Jim a close but no cigar, because his bill should have been effective immediately. Because in the arena of politics, it's very seldom that a politician does something because it's logical, reasonable, or the right thing to do. Ordinarily, it's because the politician has no choice but to take a particular action. And by making his bill effective on 1 October, what Moylan is saying is, well, the problems that we see with that gross receipts tax increase, we can live with it up until the 1st of October. I would have hoped that it had been effective, that he would have introduced the bill on the first day, and on the second day he would have been standing out in front of the legislature building with a tin pan and a spoon, banging the spoon against the pan saying, "When do I get my public hearing?"
Yeah.
And I would also hope that he would come out and say, when it comes to the or more bill, I think you know what I mean there, he would not only say no, but hell no. In other words, he's in the minority, and I would hope that he stands for something. And what I hope he would stand for is a Republican principle, low taxes. But anyhow, that's my 2 cents worth, Ken.
Well, that's what, my concern is, because we're looking at a administration and a legislature, all who campaigned on fiscal responsibility, streamlining the government, and right off the bat, we see no effort in that direction whatsoever. If anything, all we're seeing is business as usual, because...
Yeah, you're right, Ken. Hey, Ken, I got to go. I'm up against a break here, but thanks for calling.
You're welcome.
Docomo Pacific is making the Better Together bundle even better. 2 great services plus more. Get unlimited local calls, SMS, and 20 gigs of data, plus unlimited home internet for $109 a month. Sign up today and get free installation and choose between a free Galaxy S8, S8 Plus, or $100 off select devices. Mobile plus online from Docomo Pacific. Better together. Some conditions apply. See store for details.
There's a reason every day a Guam homeowner is getting a solar system installed by Micronesia Renewable Energy. It's because MRE is the most trusted name in solar. With more solar energy solutions than any other solar company on island, homeowners have a choice to go solar for zero money down or take the path to ownership. Whichever way, it keeps our skies blue and your pockets green. And with the most experienced solar technicians and an energy production guarantee, there are no worries. Call 632-2613 for a free consultation. MRE, the smarter choice.
So, coming back here, I have the next item on my card is Rory versus Mary Camacho, but I think maybe I will put that aside for the moment and pick up Lou Leon Guerrero versus Jim Moylan, and Lou Leon Guerrero versus low taxes, since I noticed that Brad has chimed in on it and a couple of others have chimed in on it. So I've got a really good coverage here by Kevin and the Post. No surprise. Governor Lou Leon Guerrero said she would sign a bill that would allow for full implementation of the property tax increase in the current budget law if the legislature approves it. Quote, "I think it's very important that the budget law be corrected." Now here's, the substance doesn't matter. I just think we should make that correction, she's saying. The governor said during a visit to the Department of Revenue and Taxation on Tuesday, it was an error. Appropriations Committee Chairman Joe San Augustine introduced the latest version of the or more bill on Monday. And then skipping ahead a little bit, if you really think about it, Leon Guerrero said the intention of the legislative body at that time was not to have the tax applied only to improvements on property value at exactly $1 million. There is no property that is valued at just $1 million. That's totally unreal and impractical. She added, whether it's a grammatical error or an error in omission, it has to be corrected. Tom Atta warned that the absence of those two words would create an $8 million deficit in the current fiscal year. And on December 17, his, quote, or more bill was narrowly approved by a 7-6 vote, but Governor Eddie Calvo vetoed the bill. Now, here's the punchline right here. In his veto message, Calvo noted that Leon Guerrero, during her gubernatorial campaign, said raising taxes would be premature. And he pointed out that she said she would collect overdue taxes instead of raising taxes. So how about that? Now, of course, there's that well-known affirmative political defense that reads like this. Well, that was then, but this is now. So at the time that she was campaigning, she was not in favor of raising taxes. She just wanted to collect the taxes that were already on the books. Now, as astute political observers as you are out there in our international radio listening audience, when do you think a pledge to raise taxes makes for good politics? I'll give you a hint. The answer to that question begins with the word N. Never. Nobody ever got elected because he said, you vote for me and I'm going to raise your taxes. It never happens. So the low tax, no tax, read my lips, no tax, no new taxes, is the politically wise position to be in, and that's exactly where Lou was during the campaign, during the time that this bill, the or more bill, was kicking around, and she said, and Governor Calvo called her on it, she said raising taxes would be premature. Now it's okay, and her attempt to find cover here is so shallow. Lou, I hope that you, for your sake, I hope that you can come up with a better rap to justify the things you want to do in the future than this. She now looks at it as, well, you know, the last legislature passed it. Not me. You know, it wasn't me. It was the 34th Guam legislature that passed it. But they made a mistake. And, you know, I'm really hot on mistakes. I think if there's a mistake, like a typo or an omission or something like that, it's really, really important that we correct it. But Governor Leon Guerrero, that's going to mean that $8 million worth of new taxes that aren't being collected right now, are going to be collected. Oh, I don't know about that, but I think we should correct that error, don't you? This doesn't sound like the kind of stuff we heard from candidate Lou Leon Guerrero. This is a feeble attempt to find cover and say, yeah, I want the money. And, of course, we've already been through that. Ken and I ticked off some of it. You know, that same legislature that made that mistake also said no more deputy directors. That was a Democrat legislature. And as I've pointed out before, the ink was hardly dry on Lou's certificate of election when she started designating deputy directors, all in the name of fiscal responsibility, I suppose. And as Ken pointed out, she wants to live in public housing. She wants to live in government house. She already got a house, pretty nice one, but she wants to live in government house and spend money on that. And then, of course, when it comes to streamlining the government, which she also said she was going to do, what's her approach there? To revive an agency that was killed by Governor Calvo in 2011, the Agana Redevelopment Authority. Well, I know our big halftime show is really, really entertaining. I wonder if it's quite as entertaining as the political acrobatics that we're seeing here with the or more bill. But we'll pick that up right after our big halftime show.
find is KUSG, Hagåtña, Guam, 93.3 FM and 104.3 HD3.
Appealing for a border deal. I'm Jack Callahan, Fox News. President Trump says the U.S. southern border is in crisis, and he blames the Democrats for it.
President Trump in his Oval Office address saying there's no gray area when it comes to border security.
This is a choice between right and wrong, justice and injustice.
And he believes the only solution is for Democrats to pass a spending bill that includes money for a wall.
This situation could be solved in a 45-minute meeting.
Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer and the Democrats' response also holding firm.
Reopen the government, and we can work to resolve our differences over border security.
More than 800,000 federal workers will miss paychecks this week because of the shutdown.
Fox's Steve Rappaport, congressional reaction right down party lines. Democrat Senator Bernie Sanders.
What President Trump is trying to do is to create fear and hatred in our country.
But Republican Senator Lindsey Graham tells Fox News rhetoric is part of the problem.
There's a deal to be had here, but it's hard to get a deal when people you're dealing with call you a racist because you want a border security wall.
President inviting congressional leaders back to the White House Wednesday for more talks. Suspicious packages have been left at several foreign embassies and consulates in Australia. Police treating them as hazardous material sites. Packages found in the capital of Canberra and in Melbourne, Australia. The U.S. and British consulates are among those that have been evacuated. Another drone impacting air travel in London. Police and the British military looking for whomever flew a drone through the airspace at London's Heathrow Airport late Tuesday, disrupting flights for a while. Just before the holidays, someone menaced London's Gatwick Airport with a drone for parts of 3 days, delaying thousands of holiday travelers. A U.S. trade delegation wrapping up 3 days of talks with their Chinese counterparts in Beijing, headed for home. This is Fox News.
Chili's 3 for Me menu just got bigger. We're giving you more choices for the same great price. For just $15, you can get a beverage, salad, and an entree. First, choose from a refreshing Coca-Cola, iced tea, or Heineken on draft. Then enjoy a house salad and select your choice of a mouth-watering entree, like our half-rack ribs, Cajun chicken pasta, old-timer burger, personal chicken fajitas, or the flavorful margarita flatbread. So hurry in today and enjoy our Chili's 3 for Me menu for just $15. Available for a limited time. Chili's, more life happens here.
There's a reason every day a Guam homeowner is getting a solar system installed by Micronesia Renewable Energy. It's because MRE is the most trusted name in solar. With more solar energy solutions than any other solar company on island, homeowners have a choice to go solar for zero money down or take the path to ownership. Whichever way, it keeps our skies blue and your pockets green. And with the most experienced solar technicians and an energy production guarantee, there are no worries. Call 632-2613 for a free consultation. MRE, the smarter choice.
A police officer has died in the line of duty in suburban Phoenix.
Tragically, Officer Clayton Townsend with the Salt River Police Department, who had proudly served for the last 5 years, was on a traffic stop and was struck and killed by a passing motorist.
That's Police Chief Carl Auerbach. The accident occurred along the 101 loop in Scottsdale, Arizona. The driver, police say, is cooperating with them. Phoenix police are turning to science to try and find a rapist, obtaining search warrants for DNA samples for every male employee at an extended health care facility where a 29-year-old woman in a vegetative state gave birth late last month. Democrats introduced new legislation in the House Tuesday that would impose tough new background checks on any firearms purchase. Former Congresswoman Gabby Giffords, who was nearly killed in an assassination attempt, urging lawmakers to pass it.
Stopping gun violence takes courage. The courage to do what's right. The courage in your ideas. I've seen great courage when my life is on the line.
Passage in the House is likely, but that bill faces an uncertain future in the Republican-controlled Senate. We've seen some strange things from those video doorbells, porch pirates, curious bears among them, but a case in Salinas, California might be the strangest of them.
Cops say this one is a new one for them. They say they have video of 33-year-old Roberto Daniel Arroyo licking the video doorbell for 3 straight hours. The parents not home at the time the kids were, but they slept through it all. Police say they have images of him from all angles because he kept changing positions while he licked away. Cops say Arroyo faces prowling charges. They say they have no explanation for his bizarre behavior. Gary Baumgarten, Fox News.
In New York, I'm Jack Callahan. This is Fox News.
Here at APL, our core values give the company its heart and soul. Whether it's connecting your business with our global network through our newly enhanced service or investing our efforts into giving back to the community, APL is committed to serving you. We humbly honor the opportunity to find innovative solutions for you and your business. To learn more about our enhanced service, call 588-4651 or visit www.apl.com/Guam for more details.
It is indeed a great show, and as I said before the show began, it would be hard to see whether our show could top the political acrobatics of Lou Leon Guerrero when it comes to tax increases. But I'm going to give the trophy to our big halftime show this time around. During the first half, I mentioned that when I was talking about Korea being divided into two countries, I said, you know, there's a nationalism dimension there. Nobody wants to see a country divided into two countries. And I said, remember back in the 1860s when our country was divided into two countries, we didn't cotton to that. And I guess I must have provoked a telephone call, because I have Mo Cotton on the line right now. Hello, Mo Cotton.
Well, it was more the halftime show and me envisioning running for a touchdown back in the good old days when I was in college. But that's not why I'm calling.
Okay.
I'm very, very happy with your show. This is not a complaint letter too much, but it's, I don't know if people know a couple of things I'm going to mention. Number one, I'm a government employee in a way because I'm on the Board of Equalization, but they don't ever mention that because that's a volunteer thing. You know, where we get I think $50 if we show up. But anyway, that's kind of what we probably should be. Hopefully someday going to a volunteer legislature and all that stuff. That's what I ran on when I ran for senator, if you recall.
I do.
Anyway, but a thought just occurred to me. No one talks about this. I'm just wondering what the director of Veterans Affairs, I'm a veteran also, and what does he do? I know there's a veterans office at TGen, and there's one at the Reflection Center in Agana, and there's one at
Asen.
And of course there's one at the clinic up at the Agana Heights, where you have to go in case you're dying by a car accident or something. You have to go get a permit to go on the Navy base where they could possibly help you, because none of the doctors at the clinic really do much other than refer. And then there's one in Hawaii. It's called Veterans Choice, which I've used quite a bit, and I'm very happy with it because we don't have a veterans hospital. But just thought I'd let you think about that, or maybe bring it up. If we're looking for fiscal responsibility, maybe that's all federal money. We don't care, right?
Well, ironically, Mo, I did explain where our Department of Veterans Affairs fits into the whole hierarchy just last week. but I'll give you the short version, okay?
Okay, good.
A short version is this. There is a part of our national government, which some people call the federal government, called the Veterans Administration. And the director of the Veterans Administration is appointed by the president, confirmed by Congress, et cetera, et cetera. And those folks are all employees of our national government. Locally, there is the Department of Veterans Affairs, which is a government of Guam agency. The Department of Veterans Affairs is located in Assen. In addition to other things, the Department of Veterans Affairs is responsible for the Veterans Cemetery. You probably know what the Veterans Administration does. You've just given us a short course on that. The function of the Department of Veterans Affairs is that they are, at least in theory, equipped with service reps who are accredited by the Veterans Administration, and they can assist veterans in filing the voluminous paperwork necessary for a veteran to obtain various kinds of assistance and money from the Veterans Administration. That's their function. It's not federally funded. It's locally funded. In a sense, it isn't even an independent department because it's operated under the governor's office, and the director of Veterans Affairs is actually a special assistant to the governor. Does that help you, Mo?
Oh, that helps me quite a bit. And I'm not really complaining because the VA has been very nice to me, paid for some very nice little operations I had in the States, at Stanford, for example. But of course, I had to pay my own way there, yeah, I'm just curious why there's so many different offices in TGen and
well, once again, now remember, all of those offices except the one in Assen are functions of the Veterans Administration. And as you know, the Veterans Administration does a lot of different things. Some of it medical, some of it counseling, some of it paper shuffling, etc. But that question would be better addressed to my national counterpart, Rush Limbaugh, I suppose, since it's something that our national government does.
Okay. And I'm happy to say that I like your show, and I want to get off as quick as possible because you do cover some great points. But I am addicted to what's that powder? I think it's called caffeine. I'm addicted to that, and but I guess I used to be addicted to the alcohol, and Percocet was an addiction there for a while. I got off, but I don't think there's any government program that can get you off that. That has to be a personal decision. Maybe some counseling, of course, is good for that. But so I've had my share, and I'm 83, I think. You may be right up there, close to me.
Pretty close.
You hint to that every once in a while. But so anyway, great show. Keep it up. And if anybody has any veterans questions, I'm pretty equipped to answer them because I've been using it a lot, especially the medical side. And I've got it. I think I've got it worked out where no matter what happens to me, I can get some help somehow.
Well, when it comes to addiction, Mo, I'll give you this advice, okay?
Oh, okay.
Most addiction should be avoided. And addiction to tall tales is salutary and must be encouraged.
Oh, okay. Well, you got me.
Okay.
And, I'm retired, and I sometimes sit home figuring out what I should do. And I say, oh, it's almost 4 o'clock. I know what to do for the next 2 hours. So that's my little spiel on your show. It's a great show.
Good call, Mo. Thanks for calling. Okay, so I can sit around and listen to stories like that all day long. So I guess it's probably time that I go through the Facebook here and, yeah, there you go, Real Joe Cruz.
Welcome back.
Well, as usual, the first guy on board was Brad Hewitt, who announced that he was locked and loaded. Jack Haddock chimed in with a Biba Tall Tales. Right on, Jack. We'll get back to you at the 7th inning stretch, Jack Haddock. And Brad then goes on to say, talking about Donald Trump's speech at noon today, they build walls not because they hate people on the other side, on the outside, but because they love the people on the inside. Okay. Albert Eliasson, Semper Fi, Bob, listening for another round of education. Well, I hope you won't be disappointed, Albert. Tom Van Engen, I'm ready for another class, Bob and Real Joe Cruz. So I'm going to I'm going to give the chalk to you, Real Joe Cruz, and you can stride up to the blackboard and teach the class from now until...
I think you want me to write, I will not open my mouth 100 times on the chalkboard.
And then we've got Vincent Peter C. Uggan. I would like to listen, but leaving now, too much commercials. Yeah, I think
Some heavy sarcasm, sir.
Yeah. Well, I think probably when it comes to talk radio, you'll have a hard time finding a talk radio show with a smaller number of commercials than this one, which is miraculous considering that Tall Tales is the top-rated afternoon FM talk show in the Western Pacific. And let's see, we got Ishmael Velez here, Ted Lewis. Hello, boss. Okay. And Lynn and Vince Polino, half a day. Carl T.C. Gutierrez, good afternoon, Governor. It's always really encouraging to see you on board. And Brad Hewitt says, you or your family. And I think he's referring to the stand your ground laws. The phrasing for self-defense, defense of yourself or others. You could use force in defense of others in most circumstances, Brad. Brad also says, or anyone else who happens to be in immediate danger and cannot retreat, okay. And Rico Blancaflor is here, Tom Tahaji. Brad says, I guess I struck a responsible chord with Brad when I was talking about the stand your ground law. The individual is responsible for his own actions. If they misuse the stand your ground authority, that individual can be tried for a crime if a reasonable person in the same situation, he says, would be in fear for their life. I think he means would not be in fear for their life, right? And that's the ticklish part about the whole thing. And when I do another post-mortem on that bill when it hits the news, I will point out that the key word in that bill, and I've pointed this out before, is the word presumption. It is presumed. And we'll talk about that when I go through Joe St. Augustine's Bill 14. And let's see, Javier, let's see, I think he's on Guam right now, Javier Atalig Jr. Hey, Bob, why aren't Guam residents with disabilities qualified for SSI, but CNMI are? And I guess, I guess he missed that program too, because I went through that. You remember when we did the program about the Dinga, Real Joe Cruz?
Yes, sir, I do.
Yeah. Twin sisters, one living in Pennsylvania, one living on Guam. The sister in Pennsylvania got the SSI, the sister in Guam didn't. Rodney Jacob filed suit saying, raising the same question that Javier raises. CNMI gets it, Guam doesn't. Isn't that a denial of equal protection? The answer to Javier's question is it's a matter of statute. The statute says that it applies to the United States. SSI applies in the United States. It defines the United States as the 50 states, the District of Columbia, and the CNMI. It does not say Puerto Rico, Virgin Islands, American Samoa, etc. So my own speculation is that when the Northern Mariana has cut their deal in the covenant. This must have been one of the bargaining points, and that's why they got it, because there's an asymmetry here. The reason advanced by folks in Washington that SSI doesn't apply in the territories is because we don't send any money to the national treasury like the 50 states do. You don't send any money in, you don't get any money back. But of course, the same thing holds true for the CNMI. There is a suit pending on that point, and Michael St. Nicholas introduced legislation in Congress that, if it were successful, would make SSI payable here. My analysis is that I think the chances of either one being successful are somewhere between slim and none. Then we've got Lee Stolle, welcome aboard, Ishmael Velez, who raises the point. So the POTUS meeting with Kim didn't accomplish anything. So I guess receiving U.S. service members' remains from the Korean War means nothing to the left. Well, let me talk about that for a second here. The editorial and my comments were directed at an accommodation with Kim where he would denuclearize in favor of us giving him stuff. One of the collateral parts of this was the repatriation of remains, but the repatriation of remains happened long before President Trump became president, and I have some personal experience with that. My neighbor back in the States, a guy named Ross Katzman, was drafted in like 1951, went to Korea, we found out he was killed in Korea, or we thought he was killed in Korea because he was MIA. And he was MIA up until about maybe 7 or 8 years ago when there was one of these little warm-ups with the Democratic People's Republic. And the North Koreans said, these are the remains of one of your soldiers named Ross Katzman. And he was given a hero's burial in my hometown, etc. And it made the front page of what now passes for the hometown newspaper. That's how come I happen to know about it. So these things have gone on before, and they are important, and they're extremely important to the next of kin of the defuntos whose remains are repatriated. But my point was, and I think the editorial that I read, point was that when it comes to the nuclear aspects of the Democratic People's Republic, nothing was accomplished. And my analysis is nothing will be accomplished. We may be able to achieve some small token victories like repatriation of remains, but that's probably about as far as we're going to go with that. I've got Dave Camacho here. Change versus transformation. Change is internal residue of the past existence. Transformation is synergy between external and internal energies, okay? I think what we're going to see is change. Nate Horn, trickle-down taxes. The businesses, landlords, owners always pass the cost to the end user. As pointed out so poignantly on the Ray Gibson show, Ray's dad always used to say, businesses don't pay taxes. Businesses collect taxes from their customers. So you're right, Nate. Brad Hewitt says, James, meaning Jim Moylan, mentioned he's in support of internet tax this morning. Spoke about raising money for the government to spend. He should be worrying about ways to shrink the government and not collect more taxes. And yeah, you know, if I ever have a chance to talk to somebody who wants to be a senator, there are a few teachable moments. First teachable moment, if you want to be a senator and you want to be good at it, you have to stand for something. And once you figure out what it is that you stand for, you have to have a message. And your message is 2, 3, 4 things you want people to know about you and what you stand for and how you're going to accomplish the things that you stand for. And oftentimes, what you stand for may be different from what others, many others, most others stand for. But that doesn't mean you can't be successful in the political arena, because being different oftentimes is what leadership is all about. Now, there's an old saying that the leader is the soldier who keeps marching to the drumbeat even when everybody else is out of step. Well, I think Jim Moylan is trying too hard here to get in step with some people who don't know what the drumbeat is. And by that, I mean his 4 Republican cohorts who don't seem to understand that by being in the minority, it's their job to get the minority for their party, for themselves. And, you know, I talked a little bit more about cooperation and Nash's equilibrium as far as cooperation is concerned. But Jim Moylan had a golden opportunity to start out by introducing a bill saying, I want to roll back the GRT and I want to do it now. I'm not going to vote for the or more bill because it's a tax increase. I don't want to tax internet sales. I don't want the government to have more to spend. I am a Republican, and I'm going to act like a Republican. Low taxes, small government, etc. But what is it? Today is his 3rd day in office, and I wonder, maybe he would have been more comfortable running as a Democrat, because he seems to be more comfortable with the tones that the Democrats are in favor of. Ishmael Velez comments on Lulian Guerrero's comment on Moylan's bill, and these are the words that Ishmael would put in Lou's mouth. When I want to see a bill from you or hear your opinion, I'll give it to you. Yeah, you know, Jim Moylan should just wait and watch. He shouldn't be doing something like this now. And if that didn't pull you up by the seat of the pants and the stack and swivel, Jim Moylan, I don't know what will, because that's the way the game is going to be played. You're not going to get very far being Mr. Nice Guy as a Republican. And Ishmael Velez, government house or my house? He's once again putting words in Lou's mouth. I think I'd rather host these grimy kids at government house. Can't have their dirty little sticky fingers on my fine china. Jose Martinez, I'm always happy to do interviews, but these headlines completely misconstrue my vision of Planned Parenthood. Remember when Lou said that? First, our core mission is protecting and expanding access to abortion and reproductive health care. We will never back down from that fight. It's a fundamental right, and women's lives are at stake. I'm trying to click on the link here. Okay, I'm going to come back and finish my my greetings to our international Facebook audience here right after the 7th inning stretch. Jack, put your glove on and get out in the field. I'm going to hit some fungal fly balls here to see if you can shag them, okay?
Docomo Pacific is making the Better Together bundle even better. 2 great services plus more. Get unlimited local calls, SMS, and 20 gigs of data, plus unlimited home internet for $109 a month. Sign up today and get free installation and choose between a free Galaxy S8, S8 Plus, or $100 off select devices. Mobile plus online from Docomo Pacific. Better together. Some conditions apply. See store for details.
The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts of Guam Training.
This week, we're talking about things we do that can upset the boss. And those things include a character trait that many of us in Guam share. I'm Jerry Roberts, and at 7:20 a.m. on The Ray Gibson Show, I'll tell you what that trait is and what to do if you've got it.
You can find daily transcripts of The Extra Point at GuamTraining.com. Tune in every weekday morning at 7:20 for The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts. Brought to you by Guahan Insurance Services on The Ray Gibson Show on 93.3 The Point.
That was my fungo bat. I just hit a really high fly ball. That ball is taking on wings. It's really going out there. Jack Haddock just put his glove on. He's racing back, 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 back. Whoa! He caught it. It was one of those over-the-head catches, like the famous Willie Mays catch. Great catch, Jack. Great way to, and thanks for your help with the 7th inning stretch, Jack Haddock. Okay, so let me go back here and finish with our Facebookers here. Brad Hewitt figures that our amateur lawmakers should have caught the or more error. Ishmael Velez, let's see, Jose Martinez. Richard Leone, what does Freddy Krueger Berdallo know about VA and the vet situation? Fred Berdallo never fought against the hypocrisy of the Adelup name. Well, I don't know what Fred knows about running that office. I know that Fred is a veteran, so that's a step in the right direction. We have had people in charge of that office that weren't even veterans. Daryl Taggarty says on vet services, add the congressional delegates district office will have a caseworker who can assist vets with their concerns about VA programs or service quality. Okay, thank you, Daryl. And Juanita Machi didn't miss today's lesson, driving. Well, I'm glad to hear that, Juanita, because you're usually right up there with Brad. You know, you guys are usually the first ones to log in. And when I saw that Brad was locked and loaded, I kind of made a mental note, geez, where's Juanita? But you were listening to your car radio, so, okay, good to see you're on board now. And Jose Martinez, Planned Parenthood president, acknowledges the truth. Abortion is indeed the core mission. As I recalled, our governor, who, by the way, is the first openly pro-abortion governor Guam has ever had kind words to say about Planned Parenthood. I guess the thing we have to be on guard for is any attempt to spend local funds on bringing Planned Parenthood to the island. But anyhow, that's our Facebook friends today. And don't forget, if you want to chime in here on Tall Tales, 888-8255. And while we're talking about housekeeping here, how about going up there and clicking on that share button? the more you share, the more viewers I have, the better Ray likes it. The better I like it too, you know. So if you wanted to do that, you could be doing your friends a big favor by cluing them in to the top-rated afternoon FM talk show here in the Western Pacific. Okay, so going back to where I left off with the Leon Guerrero administration, she campaigned about, you know, no taxes. We'll collect the taxes that haven't been collected. And as Governor Calvo said in his veto message of the or more bill, during her gubernatorial campaign, she said raising taxes would be premature. And he pointed out, she said she would collect overdue taxes instead of raising taxes. That was up until the chance that she had up until the time she had a chance to get her hands on some more money, and then comes up with the extremely transparent excuse, well, it's to correct an error that the outgoing legislature made. We should always correct errors. Leon Guerrero told reporters Tuesday that the property tax increase has already been factored into the current year's spending plan. No, that's not true. Well, it is true. It's been factored into the current year's spending plan, but our public auditor, one B.J. Cruz, has explained to us that if the legislature passes the or more bill and Governor Leon Guerrero signs it, it's not going to put any money into the coffers until next year because we missed the timing on collection of property taxes. The property tax bills are already out, so we missed that train. So acting on that bill now will put no money into the budget, even though the budget is structured around the $8 million that that bill would have brought in had the or more problem not existed. So there are those of us out here in the peanut gallery who say, well, if you're going to be $8 million short, Lou, then maybe what you need to do is trim the government down by $8 million. How about no deputy directors? How about no Agania Redevelopment Authority? And you haven't stuck one of your feet in your mouth yet on this, but we're waiting to see what you're going to do about executive security. Are you going to waste as much money on that as your predecessor did? Because if you're $8 million short, given the rough ride that we had on taxes last time, where we were told that the end of the world was at hand if taxes didn't get raised, and we raised taxes, and the governor throws 2 surprise holidays at us at the tune of about $1 million each. I don't think the folks are in much of a mood to tolerate an increase in taxes. And senators out there, if you want to stand for something when that or more bill comes up, vote against it. Because regardless of how you package it, if you package it as a well-meaning typographical error or the Attorney General screw up or something that we really need to do to make things correct, you scrape the paint and varnish off of it. What it is a tax increase. And Ray on the Ray Gibson Show has explained that people who own buildings that are taxed at $1 million or more are going to pass that tax on. It could be to tenants, could be to hotel guests, or whatever. So this is the opportunity for senators to actually stand for something and show me that I was wrong on my idea about a veto-proof legislature. Remember, I redefined the term veto-proof legislature after Tina Rose Munya Barnes was elected Speaker. And I pointed out that up until now, we'd always thought that a veto-proof legislature was one that had 10 members of the same party, so that if a governor vetoed a bill, the veto could be overridden. But given that Tina Rose Munya Barnes is the speaker, and according to some of the things I understand, that there is a lot of loyalty in the legislature to Governor Leon Guerrero, veto proof now will mean no bill will pass that the governor doesn't like, so she won't have to veto. So I'm gonna stop talking here for a second and see what it is that Susan can tell us today. Hello, Susan.
Hi, I just have a question. There is property tax and then there's building tax, correct?
Well, we call it the real property tax, but it's assessed in two different chunks. The land is assessed and the building on the property is assessed.
Okay, so they're going to go up on, I mean, I have property and I have a house on my property. If they're going to go up on property taxes, I mean, I can understand that, but why don't they leave the property taxes alone of the people that have buildings on them and then increase the property tax on the ones that just have land that are not developing it? Because we already paid two different taxes on one property with a building on it.
That's true. So your idea, Susan, then would be to encourage the development of raw property by taxing it at a higher rate than developed property?
Yes, I think so.
Okay.
Because land is just sitting there, and I mean, you're already living on the property that has a building. You're getting taxed twice, like you said. There's the real property, but you got land out there that nothing's happening. So increase their taxes.
That's an interesting idea, because I know that there are folks who would buy large chunks of raw land at a low price purely on speculation, figuring they're not going to do anything with it. They're going to hold on to it for long periods of time, and then maybe somebody's going to want to come along and build a hotel on it or something, and they can get a big return. So an interesting idea, Susan.
Yeah, and then I lost my train of thought. But anyways, I really think that's what they should do. If they're going to increase taxes, then they should do that. Anyways, okay. Thank you, Bob.
Thank you very much for calling, Susan. Good idea. Okay, I had some people chiming in here on what we've been talking about here recently, and let's see what I got here. Jose Martinez says apparently Ray Tenorio did know all about Planned Parenthood. I don't remember his making a point of it in the campaign. That would have been something that could have been a good issue for him. Karina Gutierrez Ludwig is on board. Good, welcome aboard, Karina. And then Brad says the governor is going to put that tax increase on the last legislature, not on her or the current mess occupying the lawmaking house. Well, that's what she's trying to do. Yeah, that was the last legislature that passed it. And then Brad says executive security has been camped at her house since the election became official. Well, that's off to a good start, right? Of course, she could blame that on another Joe Cruz. You can't blame it on the real Joe Cruz. You could blame it maybe on faux Joe Cruz or ersatz Joe Cruz, the chief of police. And I suspect if anyone called her on it, she said, well, you know, the chief of police did it. I didn't do it. And Jose Martinez, already passing the buck, and it's not even a week. Absolutely right, Jose. Passing the buck. Whatever happened to Harry Truman? Harry Truman used to have a sign on his desk that said, "The buck stops here." Yeah. Yeah, along the lines of passing the buck, Leon Guerrero told reporters Tuesday that the property tax increase already has been factored in the current year's spending plan, and she favors passage of the or more bill, even though it will lead to a tax increase. It's a tax increase by the previous administration, the governor said, and it's an error in the language, and I think the language should be corrected. Oh, boy. Okay, and then the next part of this story is where Governor Leon Guerrero gives Jim Moylan his comeuppance. Leon Guerrero also said she thinks the 2 tax rollbacks bills introduced Monday by Republican freshman Jim Moylan are premature. Moylan proposed Bill 9-35, which would bring the business privilege tax back to 4% from 5%. Moylan also introduced 10-35, which would cut the liquid fuel tax by 4%, restoring it to 11 cents per gallon. And here is the comment from Lou. I think Jim Moylan should wait and review all of the finances where we are today before he does anything like that. So the key word here is temerity. A freshman senator had the temerity to introduce a bill to lower taxes, which one would think is consistent with Leon Guerrero's campaign platform. But he needs to wait, even though, as far as I'm concerned, he really flubbed it by making the effective date October 1. That wasn't good enough for Lou, because if you bought what Lou is saying here, it can take a while to enact a law. So if it doesn't take effect until October 1, it could come on for public hearing. There's plenty of time to watch and wait, etc. But that isn't what she meant. I think what she meant was, if there are taxes to be raised, I will let you know when to do it. You can't use your own initiative to raise or lower taxes. If I can find a tax that I've got a good alibi on, like this or more one, I'll sign that. But I don't want you guys running around just thinking you can lower taxes without waiting for me. In keeping with their campaign promise, the governor and lieutenant governor made RevTax their first official department visit on the first working day following their inauguration, etc. Now, I said I did have an attaboy for Lou, and that is that in the other, I've been reading from the Post, in the other newspaper, yeah, wow, it's time for the home stretch already, huh? Okay, I'm going to extol upon what the other newspaper said, and then I'll let the caller tell me that I don't know jack.
Introducing Exchanged, Guam's first online and mobile remittance to the Philippines. Exchanged is the easiest and fastest way to send money to your family and friends anywhere in the Philippines. Download the Exchanged app or visit their website, exchange.me. Sign up, remit, and get a chance to win a trip for 2 to Manila. Deluxe accommodations at the Belmont Hotel at Resorts World Manila. So sign up and remit now at Exchanged. Promo ends March 2nd, 2019. Conditions apply. Also avail of Exchange dollar to remit promo. Visit exchange.me for details.
Are you not getting paid what you're worth? Or not reaching your full potential at your job? If you're pioneering, adventurous, competitive, love talking to people, and want to earn $100,000 per year, sell cars on U.S. military bases with Military Auto Source. Start on Guam, stay on Guam, or move to Japan or Korea. To see if you qualify, visit maseastasiarecruiting.com. Military Auto Source, helping you reach your full potential.
So here we are, and as promised, there is a line in the Daily News story about the visit to RevTax that reads like this. The new administration is also now working on hiring a tax attorney or two, according to Lieutenant Governor Joshua Tenorio, who is also at RevTax. And I hope that they have discovered what was added to the law by Public Law 28-175, which is now located at 11 GCA Section 1106.1, and the beginning of it reads, Office of the Principal Guam Territorial Income Tax Attorney. There is within the Department of Revenue and Taxation the Office of the Principal Guam Territorial Income Tax Attorney. The director shall appoint the principal attorney, etc., who shall be a member of the unclassified service who shall serve at his pleasure. And there are several sections here telling what the principal tax attorney will do, and it's to provide a complete range of legal services to the Department of Rev Tax. I've beat this drum many times before. We have lay people at the Department of Revenue and Taxation going up against CPAs and lawyers when it comes to collecting taxes. We have the Director of Revenue and Taxation asking incredibly stupid legal questions that could be answered by his own in-house lawyer. So the bill 28-175 allows him to create a legal office at the Department of Revenue and Taxation, staff it with a lawyer, 2, maybe 3, clerical staff, whatever it takes to run a legal office. If any place needs a legal office, it's the Department of Revenue and Taxation. In the past, we have done something that is incredibly uninformed, and that is treating lawyers as though they're fungible. Well, if we need a lawyer, we'll just get one from the AG, as though all lawyers are the same. You know, it's kind of like a bushel of corn. Every kernel of corn is like every other one. So you could grab any old lawyer and he could handle tax matters for you. When what we really need are tax attorneys in-house at the Department of Revenue and Taxation running a law office. So if that's what you have in mind, that's the attaboy there, Real Joe Cruz. Okay, so let me find out what my deficiencies are today. I've got a caller here who's going to tell me that I don't know Jack, right, Jack?
Well, good afternoon, Bob. Well, I have to jump in on this, and I'd like to thank, first of all, President Trump for putting more in my paycheck. And I could tell you after 12 months, the money that he gave back to me, I have nothing to show for it because it went to the government of Guam.
Uh-huh.
And the government of Guam, I reject the premises that they start that they're collecting less taxes. They have failed to prove that they're collecting less taxes. 12 months later, here in January, I have nothing to show in savings, in buying power. I have nothing to show for what Donald Trump put back in my pocket. I have nothing to show. Now, maybe you should go ask corporate where their tax breaks, what they did with it. But as an income owner, and when the government and Les Carton and Carlos Camacho came out with his presentation saying 2 cents isn't going to do much damage to a mother who's supporting a family of 4, where are those people now? I have nothing to show, Bob, for the return that President Trump put back in to buy more. I'm buying the same. I'm even buying less because of the tax increase.
Well,
I reject the premises of the government that says that they were collecting less. They failed to prove that.
Yeah, well, they're just collecting it from in a different means. You've heard of Oliver Wendell Holmes, I think, Jack, right?
Yes, I have.
One of Oliver Wendell Holmes's more famous statements is that the power to tax is the power to destroy. And I think perhaps you're seeing part of that in your own pocketbook, right?
Everyone in my neighborhood, Bob, everyone in my neighborhood. I mean, our purchasing power has diminished. And for the legislature and the government to come back and to be more regressive on the taxation, I mean, I don't know what to say. You know, I hope that the people that are listening out here and your audience, I hope they remember one thing when this year starts. And I hope they take this to heart. And that lies don't care who tells them. I hope they take that to heart, because I have zero return on what Donald Trump put in my pocket. Now, you need to go ask corporate what they did with their tax returns. And if they really want to increase revenue, I already said, let's make this a war against the haves and have-nots and start taxing these vehicles according to their price and not their weight. Start taxing these vehicles when they come in for registration, tax them by their Blue Book value, not by their weight or their potential. I mean, they're even charging it on as an empty chassis. It's not their ability to carry, but their empty chassis. So let's start. Let's have a real warfare right now. Let's have a warfare between the haves and have-nots. Because I'm looking. I get this end of year statement from my savings account. Nothing. I have nothing to show for what Donald Trump put back in my pocket as a worker in the private sector. I have nothing.
Well, Jack, maybe when the Or More bill comes on for hearing, you might want to go down and share your thoughts with our senators.
I wanted to hear from those people that said 2 cents on a cup of coffee isn't going to make a difference. It's not going to hurt. I want them to say that to the people that are might not get their welfare next month or their supplemental income.
I think the one that said that was Lester Carlson, right, the director of the acting.
And then Carlos Camacho came up with his presentation, says, really, it's not going to hurt them that much, and presented a mother of 4, single mother of 4. It really isn't going to hurt. It's only $100-some a month. I want him to say that now, that these people might not have a meal in February. I want them to say, hey, listen, they put more money in my paycheck. It's the end of the year. I don't have anything to show for it, and I spent all my money here on island. So where is it going?
Well,
it's not massive tax. It's not going to buildings or property or whatever. I'm buying food for the table, gas in my vehicle. And at the end of the year, I have nothing to show it. So, just I hope that your listeners will remember that lies don't care who tells them. And I hope that they put these people on notice, because this is just ridiculous, man.
So we have 2 things here, I think. Jack's precept and Jack's formula. Lies don't care who tells them, right? And Jack's precept was that lower federal taxes and increase local taxes, it all comes out in the same, right, Jack?
Actually, it comes out worse because they increase the taxes. If they kept the taxes the same, I mean, we'll be spending, our discretionary spending is here. We don't go across the other island and spend the money on something else. It stays here in Guam.
You're right, Jack. Well, I hear that song again, so
hey, Bob.
Thanks for helping me close out the show today, Jack. See you later.